Welcome to Self-Crafted Life, the space where you stop doubting, start trusting, and finally live as the real you. When you change the way you think, everything changes. Like no matter how much you try to move forward, you always end up circling the same doubts, fears, or habits over and over again. The truth is, our minds are powerful. They shape the way we see the world. They filter what we believe is possible. But here's something most people don't realize. Your thoughts aren't always telling the truth. They're just telling a story, one you've been rehearsing for a very long time. Sometimes the difference between staying stuck and moving forward isn't about working harder, it's about thinking differently. In this episode, I want to share with you 10 simple but powerful psychological tricks. Not manipulation tactics, not shortcuts, but mental shifts that can actually change the way you relate to yourself, to others, and to the world. Some of these you might already know. Others might surprise you. But my hope is that at least one of them lands in the right place, that it helps something click, or break open, or settle in. Because when you change your thoughts, you change your behavior. And when you change your behavior, your life begins to feel a little less out of control, and a lot more like your own. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's explore 10 psychological tools that just might shift the way you think, and maybe the way you live. 1. The spotlight effect. You're not being judged as much as you think, have you? Ever walked into a room and felt like everyone was looking at you? Maybe you tripped a little, wore something different, or said something awkward, and immediately, your mind screamed, "Everyone saw that. They're judging me." That feeling has a name, the spotlight effect. It's a psychological phenomenon where we overestimate how much other people notice or care about what we're doing. Why? Because we're so used to being the center of our own world, we assume we must be the center of everyone else's too. But the truth is, most people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think. They're busy thinking about themselves, their own insecurities, their own mistakes, their own lives. And when you realize that, something incredible happens. You start to relax. You give yourself permission to be human. You stop obsessing over every little thing you said, wore, or did, because honestly, no one else is keeping score the way you are. Understanding the spotlight effect can be freeing. It's not about caring less, it's about realizing you don't need to perform all the time. You can stumble. You can wear something imperfect. You can say something weird. And life will keep going. People will forget. And more importantly, you'll grow. So next time you catch yourself spiraling with embarrassment or self-consciousness, try asking, what if no one noticed? Or, what if they did, and it just wasn't a big deal? 2. Cognitive reframing. Change the frame, change the meaning sometimes. Life doesn't hurt because of what happened, it hurts because of the way we're seeing it. That's where cognitive reframing comes in. It's a psychological tool that helps you change the meaning of a situation by looking at it from a different angle, kind of like adjusting the lens on a camera. The event stays the same, but what you focus on shifts. Let's say you didn't get the job you wanted. Your first thought might be, I failed, I'm not good enough. But what if you reframed it to, this wasn't the right fit, and now, I have space to find something better? Or you get stood up by a friend, and your mind says, they don't care about me. But you reframe it as, maybe they're struggling too. Or maybe this is a sign I need boundaries. Reframing doesn't mean pretending everything's okay. It means choosing not to be defined by one negative interpretation. It's a skill, and the more you practice it, the more empowered you feel. You realize you have options. You're not just reacting, you're responding. It's the difference between thinking, this ruined my day, and saying, this was hard, but it won't define my day. Try it sometime. When something bothers you, pause and ask, what else could this mean? Is there another way to see this? You'd be surprised how much lighter things feel when you shift the story you're telling yourself. 3. Confirmation bias. You find what you're looking for. Have you ever bought a new car and then suddenly started seeing that same car everywhere? That's not magic. That's confirmation bias. Your brain's natural tendency to seek out and focus on information that confirms what you already believe. And it doesn't just apply to cars. If you believe you're not good enough, your brain will look for evidence to prove it. The awkward pause in a conversation, the critical look, the one thing you forgot. But if you believe you're growing, or strong, or capable, guess what? Your brain starts picking up on evidence of that. 2. That's bias affects everything. How we see ourselves, how we interpret other people's actions, how we define success or failure. It's like your mind is a filter, and it keeps what fits. The story you're already telling. So here's the question. What story are you reinforcing every day? If your self-talk is filled with, I always mess up or people don't really like me, your brain will keep proving you right, not because it's true, but because that's what it's been told to focus on. But here's the good news. You can challenge that. You can interrupt the pattern by asking, is this really true? Or is this just what I expect to be true? Confirmation bias isn't a flaw, it's a feature, and when you use it intentionally, you can train your brain to find evidence of your worth, your resilience, and your growth. Because the story you choose becomes the reality you live in. 4. The power of pausing. Not every thought needs a reaction. Your mind is a busy place. Thoughts pop up constantly about work, people, the past, the future, your worth, your worries. And if you're like most of us, you tend to believe those thoughts and react to them as if they're facts. But here's something that can change your entire experience of thinking. Not every thought needs a reaction. Just because your brain tells you you're failing or they don't like you doesn't make it true. And more importantly, you don't have to act on it. This is where the pause becomes powerful. The pause is that moment of space between the thought and your reaction to it. It's the difference between hearing your inner critic and letting it hijack your whole day. You can learn to say, that's an interesting thought, instead of that's the truth, and now I have to panic. This takes practice, of course. Your mind will want to go fast, especially in moments of stress. But slowing down gives you choice, and choice is freedom. The next time your thoughts are spinning, try this. Pause, breathe, observe, ask yourself, is this helpful? Or is this just a habit of fear? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Just sit with the thought, let it float by, and decide not to follow it. You are not your thoughts. You are the one listening to them. 5. The Pygmalion effect. People rise or fall to your expectations. People often become who you believe they are. It's subtle, but powerful. If you expect someone to fail, you'll probably treat them with less patience, less trust, less warmth. And over time, they may unconsciously live down to that expectation. That's the Pygmalion effect in action. On the other hand, when you believe in someone, when you treat them like they're capable, trustworthy, valuable, they tend to grow into that belief. And here's the surprising part. This doesn't just apply to others. It applies to yourself too. If you expect yourself to fall apart in hard situations, you probably will. If you expect to grow, adapt, and find your way, you'll start showing up in ways that make that belief true. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the question is, what are your expectations creating in others and in yourself? This isn't about toxic positivity. It's not pretending everything is great when it's not. It's about choosing beliefs that support growth, instead of ones that shut it down. When you believe people can change, they're more likely to. When you expect respect from others, you're more likely to receive it. When you treat yourself as someone worth trusting, you start to live like someone who is. 6. The Zeigarnik effect. Why unfinished tasks stick in your mind ever. Find yourself lying in bed, thinking about that one email you didn't send, or replaying a conversation you didn't finish. That's the Zeigarnik effect, our brain's tendency to remember unfinished tasks more than completed ones. It's why to-do lists feel satisfying. It's why unresolved conflicts echo in our minds. And it's why leaving things open-ended can create a low-grade anxiety we carry around without realizing it. Your brain sees incompletion as a problem that needs fixing, even if it's small. The good news: you don't always have to finish the task to get peace. Sometimes just acknowledging it, writing it down, naming it, planning when to revisit it, can quiet that mental noise. Try this. Before bed, do a brain dump. Write out everything unresolved, even tiny stuff. Not to do it all now, just to give your brain permission to let go for the moment. Understanding the Zeigarnik effect helps you work with your brain instead of against it. It gives you a way to create closure, even when things aren't finished yet. Because sometimes peace comes, not from completing everything, but from giving your mind somewhere to set it down. 7. The false consensus effect. Not everyone thinks like you, and that's okay. It's easy to assume other people see the world the same way we do, that they value what we value, think like we think, interpret things the way we do. But more often than not, they don't. This is called the false consensus effect, our tendency to overestimate how much others agree with us, and it can cause a lot of frustration. You might take things personally that were never meant that way. You might assume silence means disapproval, or feel offended when someone simply sees the world differently. But understanding this bias can bring so much relief. It reminds you, people aren't wrong for thinking differently. They're just not you. They come from different backgrounds, wounds, beliefs, needs. And that's not a threat, it's just reality. The more you accept that others operate from a different internal world, the more peaceful your own becomes. You stop needing everyone to validate your point of view. You stop being surprised when people don't react the way you would, and you start creating space for curiosity instead of conflict. Peace doesn't come from agreement, it comes from understanding. 8. The mere exposure effect. Familiarity builds comfort. Have you ever noticed how a song you didn't like at first grows on you the more you hear it? That's the mere exposure effect, a psychological phenomenon where we tend to develop a preference for things simply because they're familiar. It applies to music, ideas, people, even ourselves. This is why repetition is powerful. It's why healing takes time, and why something that feels uncomfortable at first, like setting boundaries or being alone, might start to feel safer with practice. Your brain finds comfort in what it recognizes. That's not weakness, that's wiring. The takeaway: if you want to change how you feel about something, don't wait for inspiration, build familiarity. Surround yourself with the language of self-compassion. Repeat thoughts that support your growth. Show up for habits, even when they don't feel natural yet. You're not faking it, you're rewiring familiarity, and that changes everything. 9. The sunk cost fallacy. Let go of what's no longer right. We've all stayed too long in something, a job, a relationship, a commitment, just because we've already invested so much into it. That's the sunk cost fallacy. It's the belief that because we've already spent time, energy, or money, we have to keep going, even when it's not working, even when we've outgrown it. But here's the truth. Just because you've spent a long time making a mistake, doesn't mean you need to spend even longer living in it. Letting go isn't failure, it's wisdom. It means honoring who you are now, not who you were when you made the decision. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose peace over pride. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is, this no longer fits who I'm becoming. 10. The self-fulfilling prophecy. Who you believe you are. You become what you believe about yourself. Deep down shapes how you move through the world. If you believe you're unlovable, you'll unconsciously push people away. If you believe you're resilient, you'll find ways to rise. This is the power of the self-fulfilling prophecy, where your beliefs don't just reflect your reality, they create it. It happens subtly. You believe you're bad at relationships, so you avoid vulnerability and then never build real connection. You think you're not creative, so you stop trying and never discover what's possible. But this isn't about blame, it's about awareness, because once you notice the belief, you can challenge it. Ask, where did I learn this? Is it still true? What would change if I believed something better? You don't have to believe in yourself fully to start. You just have to leave the door open, because every time you show up for yourself differently, you reinforce a new story, and eventually, that story becomes who you are. Final word. Small shifts, big changes. So, what did you notice? Maybe one of these ideas landed softly, like something you already knew but forgot. Maybe another one made you pause, tilt your head, and think, I've never seen it that way before. That's the power of psychology, not just to explain human behavior, but to transform how we relate to ourselves and the world around us. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. You don't need to master all 10 ideas perfectly. Even one small shift in thinking can start a ripple effect, like giving yourself permission to pause before reacting, or realizing you're not being judged nearly as harshly as you thought, or letting go of something that no longer fits without guilt. This is the quiet kind of change, the kind that doesn't get applause, but builds peace, the kind that doesn't look dramatic, but feels different inside your body, your decisions, your energy. That's where growth begins, not in a leap, but in a choice. So here's your invitation. Take what resonated, leave what didn't. Revisit these ideas when you need them. And above all, stay curious about your own mind. Because the more aware you become, the more power you gain to rewrite the story you're living. And that's not just mindset work. That's freedom. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening not just to me, but to yourself. Until next time, keep noticing, keep growing. You're already doing the work, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Remember, the world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be real. Keep showing up as you.